Eric Mercer's fingers traced the stem of his wine glass as he observed his wife across the table at Le Cirque. The candlelight caught the burgundy liquid, casting a deep red glow across the pristine white tablecloth. 15 years of marriage had taught him to read every micro-expression that crossed Kara's face. Tonight, something was different. The matriarch appeared at their table, presenting the foie gras with practiced elegance. "Madame, Monsieur, bon appétit," she announced. Kara's perfectly manicured fingers fidgeted with her napkin, a tell she had developed over the years when anxiety crept in. The diamond ring he'd given her 15 years ago caught the light, sending prisms dancing across the table. She hadn't touched her appetizer. "The foie gras is exceptional here," Eric remarked in a measured tone. As CEO of Mercer Tech Cybersecurity, he had learned to navigate uncomfortable silences with the same precision he used to close multi-million-dollar contracts. "You usually love it. I'm not very hungry," Kara replied, her voice barely above a whisper as she reached for her water glass, though her hand trembled slightly. Eric set down his fork and studied her face. The grace that defined Kara Blanchard Mercer seemed fractured tonight as her emerald eyes darted around the restaurant, avoiding his gaze. "Something's bothering you," he stated, not as a question, but as an observation. In the background, the soft clink of silverware and murmurs of conversation created a private cocoon around their table. "Kara," she began, her voice trembling as she finally met his eyes. "I need to tell you something." Her fingers gripped the edge of the table, knuckles white against the crisp linen. The perfect facade she had maintained as his wife and CFO of Mercer Tech was showing cracks he had never seen before. "Your brother Stephen and I, we've been together since before our wedding," she confessed through tears. Eric's face remained impassive while his mind accelerated, processing 15 years of subtle clues he had chosen to ignore. The late-night office meetings, the family vacations where Stephen was always present, the inside jokes at company gatherings. "We're in love," Kara continued, her voice growing stronger as she forced out the words, and she took a shaky breath. "All 3 children are mine." The ambient noise of the restaurant faded to a dull hum as Eric processed her words. James, Sarah, and Alina, the children he had raised, loved, and protected, suddenly became strangers in his mind. "We want to raise them together," Kara pressed on, encouraged by his silence. "We thought maybe you'd want to stay in their lives as their uncle." Eric's hand moved deliberately to his pocket as he retrieved his phone with the same precision he used in board meetings. He scrolled through his contacts while maintaining unwavering eye contact with Kara. "Hey, Steve," he said into the phone in an eerily calm tone. The kind of calm that preceded corporate takeovers and hostile acquisitions. "Mom's asking about those DNA test results I sent her last week." Kara's face drained of color. The perfect facade she had maintained for 15 years shattered in an instant. Her lips parted, yet no words came out. "You didn't think I knew," Eric said steadily, his eyes now hard as steel. 15 years of lies, Kara. 15 years of playing me for a fool." "How? When did you?" she stammered, her composure completely broken. "A CEO doesn't survive in this industry by being naive," Eric replied as he took a deliberate sip of his wine. "Every betrayal leaves a trail. You and Stephen just never bothered to cover yours properly." "The children are legally mine," Kara cried, panic rising in her voice. "Every birthday, every school event, every medical decision, every document bears my name. The name you were so eager to take 15 years ago." Tears flowed freely down Kara's cheeks, smearing her perfect makeup. "Please, Eric, we can talk about this," she pleaded. "Oh, we will," Eric assured her in a chilling tone. "But first, I believe Stephen's probably having a very interesting conversation with our mother right now. Family dinner on Sunday should be enlightening." He stood, straightening his perfectly tailored jacket. "I've already ordered a car for you. I wouldn't want my wife to be stranded on our anniversary," he declared. The word wife carried enough venom to make Kara flinch. "What are you going to do?" she whispered, fear evident in her voice. Eric placed several $100 bills on the table, more than enough to cover their barely touched meal. "I'm going to do what I do best, Kara. I'm going to make sure everyone gets exactly what they deserve." He walked away from the table, leaving Kara trembling in her seat as his mind mapped out the next moves in this game of corporate and familial chess. 15 years of betrayal had taught him patience. Now it was time to show them all why he had earned his reputation as one of the most ruthless CEOs in the industry. The study in Eric's penthouse apartment had always been his sanctuary, a place where he made decisions that shaped the future of his company, and by extension, thousands of lives. Tonight, it felt like a war room. Family photos lined the walls, carefully curated moments that now felt like exhibits at a crime scene. Each smile, each embrace, each moment of familial bliss had been built on a foundation of lies. Franklin Parsons stood by the desk, his presence as solid and dependable as the thick manila envelope he held. As Eric's longtime friend and private investigator, he had seen the ugliest side of human nature, but this case struck a particular nerve. "Pour yourself a drink, Frank. You've earned it," Eric said, gesturing toward the crystal decanter of 30-year-old Macallan. Franklin moved to the bar cart, envelope clutched tightly in his hand. "You've known for months, haven't you?" he asked as he watched Eric pour 2 generous fingers of scotch into each glass. 6 months, 2 weeks, and 3 days, Eric replied in an unsettlingly steady voice. "When Alina, our youngest, needed a blood type test for her surgery, he took a contemplative sip of his scotch. The results didn't make sense given my blood type, a simple impossibility that unraveled 15 years of deception." Franklin then spread several surveillance photos across the mahogany desk. "Your brother's been living quite the double life," he exclaimed. "The offshore accounts, the planned escape to Buenos Aires." He paused, studying Eric's reaction. They thought they had it all figured out. They thought they were so clever. Eric smiled, the smile of a predator who had spotted wounded prey. "Did you get everything I asked for? Every transaction, every meeting, every phone call for the past 15 years?" Franklin asked. He pulled out more documents, each page representing another nail in Stephen and Kara's coffin. "Your brother's been embezzling from your company too, using Kara's position as CFO to cover his tracks. The numbers are substantial." Eric picked up one surveillance photo. It showed Stephen and Kara in an intimate embrace outside a boutique hotel in Manhattan. "How long have you been tracking them?" he demanded. "Since the day you asked me to look into the blood type discrepancy," Franklin replied, taking a seat across from Eric. "They meet every Wednesday, like clockwork. Same room, same time. The hotel staff even knows them by name." "Predictable," Eric muttered as he set down the photo. "That's always been Stephen's weakness. Even as kids, he could never resist falling into patterns." Franklin leaned forward, concern etching lines around his eyes. "Eric, what are you planning?" "It's going to destroy them completely." "They destroyed themselves, Frank," Eric said, his voice edged with cold fury. "The moment they decided to make a fool of me, to steal my children, to betray not just me but our entire family, they signed their own destruction." "And the children?" Franklin asked carefully. Eric's expression softened slightly. "They deserve to know the truth. All of it. The lies, the theft, the planned escape that would have torn them from their schools, their friends, everything they've ever known. The offshore accounts alone would put them away for years." Franklin pulled out more financial documents. "Add the corporate embezzlement, the fraudulent contracts. It's not enough. Prison is too simple, too clean." Eric interrupted as he stood and walked to the wall of family photos. "I want them to lose everything, just like they planned for me." Franklin watched his friend closely. "The board meeting tomorrow will proceed exactly as planned," Eric finished. "Stephen's allies think they're making a power play, but they don't realize they're walking into a trap 15 years in the making. "And Kara," Eric added coldly. "My wife made her choice long ago. Now she gets to live with the consequences." The sound of a key in the front door made both men pause. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. Then silence. "That must be Kara," Eric said, checking his watch. "Right on schedule, probably here to collect some personal items, thinking I'm still at the restaurant." Franklin moved toward the study door, but Eric raised his hand. "Let her come. I want to see what she does when she thinks no one's watching." The footsteps grew closer and then stopped outside the study door. After a moment's hesitation, the handle turned. Kara stepped into the room and froze upon seeing Eric and Franklin. Her designer dress from dinner was slightly rumpled, and her makeup was smeared despite her obvious attempts to fix it. "Eric," she breathed, her eyes darting between the two men. "I thought you'd still be out." "Clearly," Eric replied, gesturing to the surveillance photos on his desk. "Looking for something specific, Kara? Perhaps the backup drive you keep in the false bottom of your desk drawer?" Her face paled. "How did you?" "No," Eric finished for her. "I know everything, Kara. Every meeting, every transaction, every lie you and Stephen told for the past 15 years, including the plans for your little escape to Buenos Aires. Tell me, were you planning to tell the children before or after you ruined their lives?" he demanded. "You don't understand," Kara began, stepping forward, but Eric cut her off. "Stephen and I are finished. Your access to the company accounts has been revoked. Your personal accounts are being audited. The board meets tomorrow to discuss the evidence of your embezzlement." Tears welled in Kara's eyes again. "The children are legally mine," Eric stated firmly. "Every document, every school form, every medical record bears my signature, my legal right as their father." "You can't do this," Kara whispered, her voice breaking. Eric's laugh was cold enough to make both Kara and Franklin shiver. "I'm not doing anything, Kara. You and Stephen did this. Every lie, every betrayal, every stolen dollar led to this moment." He stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. "You wanted to turn me into their uncle. Congratulations, you've just turned yourself into nothing more than a cautionary tale." Kara stumbled backward, her hand finding the doorframe for support. Without another word, she turned and fled, her heels clicking rapidly down the hallway. "That was brutal," Franklin commented as they heard the front door slam. Eric returned to his desk and picked up his scotch. "That was just the beginning," he said, raising his glass in a mock toast to family. Morning light filtered through the windows of Eric's corner office at Mercer Tech headquarters, though he had been there for hours. The night had been productive. Pieces carefully moved into position, alliances secured, traps set with precision that would have made Machiavelli proud. The knock on his door was expected. Guadalupe Kane entered first, her sharp features set in a grim expression that matched her impeccably tailored charcoal suit. As head of legal, she had seen her share of corporate warfare, but this was different, personal. Behind her, Jeremiah Booth's massive frame filled the doorway, his security chief's presence as intimidating as ever. "The board is calling for an emergency meeting," Guadalupe announced without preamble, as she dropped a stack of documents on Eric's desk. "Stephen's allies are moving faster than we anticipated." Eric loosened his tie slightly, the only outward sign of his all-night work. "How many board members?" he asked. "Out of 9, Jeremiah replied in a deep, resonant voice. "Led by Donald McIntosh. They're claiming you're mentally unstable, citing your recent paranoid behavior." "Paranoid," Eric repeated, testing the word. Interesting choice. Stephen's work, no doubt, always did have a flair for the dramatic. Guadalupe perched on the edge of his desk, a familiarity earned through years of legal battles. "McIntosh is pushing for an immediate vote of no confidence. He's gathered statements from several employees about your erratic behavior over the past few months." "Let me guess," Eric said with a razor-sharp smile. "All employees who owe their positions to Stephen's influence." "Every single one," Jeremiah confirmed, We've already compiled their financial records, suspicious deposits, unexplained bonuses, all traceable back to accounts controlled by Stephen. Eric reached for his desk drawer and pulled out a thick file. Perfect timing. Call Holly Irwin from PR. It's time to start phase 1. Holly's already here, Guadalupe said with a smile matching Eric's predatory expression. She's been working on the press release all night. Beloved CEO uncovers massive embezzlement scheme. Family betrayal rocks a corporate giant. The draft read. The media is going to eat this up. And the evidence? Eric asked, though he already knew the answer. Jeremiah placed a secured laptop on the desk. Everything's ready. Financial records, surveillance footage, email exchanges, 15 years of documentation, all verified and time-stamped. They won't know what hit them. Donald McIntosh, Eric mused while standing to look out over the city, asked, "Tell me, Guadalupe, how long has he been on Stephen's payroll?" 3 years, she replied promptly. Monthly deposits of $50,000 routed through a shell company in the Caymans. Amateur work. Really. They never expected anyone to look too closely. And now he's a liability. Jeremiah interjected. The SEC would be very interested in those transactions. Not to mention his wife might have questions about certain personal expenses we've uncovered. Eric turned to his team, his expression coldly satisfied. Make sure all the evidence is ready for the board meeting. Every transaction, every email, every dirty little secret they thought was buried. And get me Judge Willard on the phone. It's time to call in that favor. Guadalupe assured him. The restraining orders are already being processed. Once the evidence of financial crimes is presented, we can move for emergency injunctions against both Stephen and Kara. What about the children? Jeremiah asked carefully. Eric's expression hardened. They stay with me. Every legal document, every school record, every medical form names me as their father. Stephen might be their biological father, but legally, he's nothing. A knock at the door interrupted them. Holly Irwin, head of PR, entered with her tablet in hand. The media is already buzzing. Someone leaked hints about major corporate irregularities at Mercer Tech. The markets are getting nervous. Perfect. Eric nodded. Let them speculate. By the time the board meeting starts, the sharks will be circling. Nothing like the threat of a stock price collapse to focus the mind. The timing needs to be perfect, Guadalupe warned. If we move too soon, the timing will be exactly right. Eric cut her off. I'd spent 6 months preparing for this moment. Every detail has been accounted for. Holly's tablet chimed with an incoming message. Sir, your mother's on her way up. Security just cleared her, Guadalupe announced. The atmosphere in the room shifted. Martha Mercer wasn't just Eric and Stephen's mother. She was a major shareholder and had been on the board since their father's death. Her influence could sway the remaining undecided board members. Clear the room, Eric ordered, though his tone was gentler than before. Guadalupe, stay. We'll need legal representation for this conversation. As the others filed out, Martha Mercer entered the office. At 65, she carried herself with the same dignity that had guided the company through its early years after her husband's death. Today, however, her usual composure seemed strained. I got your message, she said, her voice tight with control. Please tell me this is some kind of mistake. Eric gestured for her to sit. You've seen the DNA results. I've seen them, Martha replied, her hands trembling slightly as she placed her handbag on the desk. But there must be some explanation. Stephen wouldn't. He couldn't. Mom, Eric said softly, there's more you need to see. He nodded to Guadalupe, who placed a folder in front of Martha. Martha opened the folder, her face growing paler with each page she turned. The surveillance photos, bank statements, and email exchanges told a story no mother ever wanted to read about her children. 15 years, she whispered. They've been lying to all of us for 15 years. The company, too, Guadalupe added gently. The financial fraud alone. Martha's head snapped up, her eyes suddenly sharp. The company. They've been stealing from the company. Her trembling hands were replaced by a steely resolve. The same determination that had helped her survive the loss of her husband. Millions, Eric confirmed, using Kara's position as CFO to cover their tracks. They were planning to flee to Buenos Aires next month, taking the children, the money, everything. Those children, Martha's voice cracked. My grandchildren. I've watched you raise them, love them, protect them. And all this time, they're still my children. Stephen may share their DNA, but he forfeited any right to them the moment he chose to betray this family, Eric stated firmly. Martha stood abruptly, her decision made. The board meeting. When? 2 hours, Guadalupe replied. Donald McIntosh is leading the charge against you, claiming mental instability. Martha's bitter laugh broke through. Donald, that pompous fool has been trying to gain control of this company since before my husband died. She turned to Eric, her expression hardening. What do you need from me? Your support. Eric replied simply, when the evidence is presented, when everything comes to light, I need the board to understand that this isn't about revenge. It's about protecting what Dad built, what we've all built. Tears filled Martha's eyes, yet her voice remained steady. Your father would be proud of you, Eric, not just for uncovering this, but for how you're handling it. Show them no mercy. Eric squeezed his mother's hand gently. Trust me, Mom. By the time this is over, everyone will understand exactly why I'm considered the most ruthless CEO in this industry. As Martha left to prepare for the board meeting, Guadalupe gathered the necessary documents. The pieces are in place. Stephen and Kara won't know what hit them. That's where you're wrong, Eric replied, straightening his tie as he prepared for battle. They'll know exactly what hit them. They'll just be powerless to stop it. The morning sun had fully risen over the city, marking the beginning of one of the most dramatic days in Mercer Tech's history. In 2 hours, I will walk into the boardroom and begin the systematic destruction of everything Stephen and Kara plotted to steal. That thought brought a cold smile to his face. Let them come with their accusations of paranoia and instability. I will respond with 15 years of documented betrayal, fraud, and theft. Let them try to paint me as the villain. I will show them what a real villain can do. The game was set. The players were in position, and Eric Mercer was about to remind everyone why he never forgave betrayal. The Mercer Tech boardroom bristled with tension as 9 executives took their seats around the polished table. Donald McIntosh, his silver hair immaculately styled, adjusted his Hermes tie with practiced nonchalance. 3 other board members, Richardson, Jong, and Peterson, sat clustered near him, their alliance evident in their positioning. Eric Mercer entered last, with Guadalupe Kane at his right shoulder, carrying a stack of identical black folders. His mother, Martha Mercer, was already seated, her presence commanding respect even in silence. Shall we begin? Donald's voice carried smug confidence as he announced, We've called this emergency session to address serious concerns about the company's leadership. Eric took his seat at the head of the table with measured precision. By all means, Donald, enlighten us. We're concerned about the direction of the company. Donald's allies nodded in synchronized agreement as he added, recent events in your personal life. Do you mean my wife's affair with my brother? Eric interrupted sharply. Or perhaps you're referring to the systematic theft of company funds. A murmur rippled through the room. Donald's confident smile flickered. Now, Eric, he attempted to regain control. These wild accusations are thoroughly documented. Eric nodded to Guadalupe, who began distributing the black folders. Inside, you'll find detailed evidence of a 15-year embezzlement scheme orchestrated by Stephen Mercer and Kara Blanchard Mercer. The room fell silent as board members flipped through the documents. Donald's face turned ashen as he reached page 3. This is... Board member Sarah Jung's voice trailed off as she studied the financial records. Impossible, Eric suggested. That's what Stephen and Kara thought. They believed their tracks were well covered. After all, who would suspect the CFO and the beloved younger brother? These offshore accounts, Peterson muttered as he scanned the documents, total approximately $97 million, siphoned through a complex network of shell companies and false contracts, all authorized by Mrs. Blanchard Mercer in her capacity as CFO. With Stephen Mercer as the primary beneficiary, Donald's hand trembled as he turned another page. These allegations are serious, but they're not allegations, Eric said evenly. They're facts. Facts that the SEC is very interested in, particularly concerning certain board members who may have been complicit in the fraud. Donald's complexion turned ghost white. Page 15. Eric continued in a conversational tone. You'll find a series of monthly payments of $50,000 routed through a shell company in the Caymans. Tell me, Donald, does your wife know about the apartment in Tribeca? The one registered to your consulting firm? This is outrageous, Donald sputtered. Martha interjected. Outrageous is the betrayal of trust, not just of the company, but of this family. Board member Sarah Jung then declared, I move for an immediate vote to remove Kara Blanchard Mercer as CFO and to initiate a full forensic audit. Richardson quickly seconded, desperate to distance himself from Donald's sinking ship. 7 hands raised immediately, while Donald and Peterson kept theirs down. The motion carries, Guadalupe announced formally. Mrs. Blanchard Mercer is hereby removed from her position, effective immediately. All her accounts and access will be frozen pending investigation. Donald made one last desperate attempt. And what about the accusations against you? Your erratic behavior, your paranoid investigations. Eric's laugh was cold. Paranoid. I call it thorough. The same thoroughness that uncovered your involvement, Donald. That attention to detail will injure your career when the SEC reviews these documents. You can't, Donald protested. I already have, Eric stated as he stood and said, Guadalupe, please escort Mr. Massintosh to security. I believe federal agents are waiting to ask him about those Cayman accounts. As Donald was led from the room, his face a mask of impotent rage, Eric addressed the remaining board members. Let this serve as a reminder. Mercer Tech was built on trust, integrity, and family values. Anyone who betrays those principles will face the consequences. Peterson timidly asked, What about Stephen? My brother made his choices, Eric replied coldly. Now he gets to live with them. All further communications will go through legal. No objections. The silence was deafening. Excellent, Eric said, gathering his papers. Martha, would you join me in my office? We have other matters to discuss. Outside the boardroom, Franklin Parsons waited in the corridor. Federal agents have Mackintosh in custody, he reported quietly. They found additional documents in his office. It seems he was planning his own embezzlement scheme. Of course he was. Eric nodded. Have security clear out Kara's office. Every document, every drive, every sticky note. I want all cataloged and secured. Already done, Franklin confirmed. And Stephen, I have special plans for my dear brother. Eric's thin smile hardened. The board meeting was just the opening move. Martha Mercer's home had always been a sanctuary of old money elegance and family tradition. Now, sitting in her favorite armchair, she held the DNA test results that had shattered 15 years of carefully maintained lies. How could they? She whispered, looking up at Eric, who stood before her. Your father would be proud, he said gently as he knelt beside her chair. I need you to make a choice, Mom. Stephen and Kara will try to turn you against me. They'll claim I'm the villain here, Eric explained. They plan to steal not just money, but our children's future, their stability, everything I worked to build. They love them, Martha cried. My grandchildren. I've watched you raise them, love them, protect them. Stephen has always wanted what wasn't his, Eric replied, his tone hardening. Dad's approval, my position, my life. You took 15 years of my life, while you played happy families with my wife. Did you laugh about it? Did you and Kara share private jokes about fooling a trusting Eric? He demanded. It wasn't like that, Stephen protested weakly. Then explain it, brother, Eric said icily. Explain how you justified stealing my life. My children, my trust. Explain it to Mom and to the federal investigators who are very interested in those offshore accounts. Federal investigators. Stephen's face drained of color. You're bluffing. Am I? Eric pulled out his phone and played a recording of Kara discussing their escape plans in detail. I have 15 years of evidence, Stephen. Every meeting, every transaction, every lie documented and verified. Would you like to hear it? Martha gasped. Stephen slumped in his chair, defeat written all over his face. Here's what's going to happen. You resign from the company, sign over any claim to the children, and disappear from our lives. I will bury you in legal proceedings so deep you'll need 3 lifetimes to see daylight. You can, and I will, Stephen whispered furiously. Eric stepped closer, his presence overwhelming. You took 15 years from me, Stephen. 15 years of lies while you played happy families with my wife. Explain to me, brother, how you justified stealing my life, my children, my trust. Explain it to Mom. Explain it to the federal investigators who are very interested in those offshore accounts. Eric's tone was dangerously soft. Oh, did I mention? The SEC is investigating all the financial irregularities. They're especially interested in connections to certain South American banks. I believe money laundering was mentioned. You destroy your own brother, Stephen pleaded hollowly. You destroyed yourself, Martha interjected firmly. The moment you chose betrayal over family, you ceased to be my son. Her words hit Stephen like physical blows. He staggered to his feet, desperate eyes darting between his mother and Eric. The children are mine, he shouted. Eric, he cried, please, the children need to know their real father. Eric's voice was final. The children are legally mine. Every document, every school record, every medical form bears my signature. Your biological connection means nothing compared to 15 years of devotion and care. Federal marshals led Stephen and Kara away in handcuffs. Kara's mascara ran in dark streams down her face, while Stephen's shoulders slumped in final defeat. Was it worth it? Whispered Franklin softly. Eric watched his former wife and brother being led away, thinking of his children safe at home with their grandmother. They cried when told the truth, but they had shown remarkable resilience. Every second counts, he replied with absolute conviction. After the courtroom cleared, the prosecuting attorney approached Eric. Mr. Mercer, the U.S. Attorney's Office appreciates your cooperation. Your documentation was instrumental in securing these convictions. Justice needed to be served. Eric rose from his seat. Not just for me, but for every person they betrayed. My children, my mother, and every employee whose job was jeopardized by their greed. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed, shouting questions. Eric strode through them with the commanding presence he brought to board meetings, his mother on his arm, and Franklin and Guadalupe flanking him like guards. Mr. Mercer, how do you feel about the verdict? Will Mercer Tech recover from this scandal? And what about your brother's claims about the children? A reporter asked. Eric paused at the top of the steps. We prepared for this moment. Justice was served today, not just for my family, but for every Mercer Tech employee, every shareholder, every person who believed in trust and integrity. His voice softened slightly as he added, as for the children, they know who their real father is, the one who was there for every moment of their lives, and who will continue to protect and guide them. 6 months later, with wounds beginning to heal and new patterns emerging, Eric sat in his expanded corner office at Mercer Tech headquarters. Quarterly reports spread across his desk testified to the company's stunning recovery. Penny Mack, his new CFO and former federal prosecutor turned corporate executive, entered with another stack of documents. The board has approved our expansion into Europe, she announced. Stock price has doubled since the trial. They're calling you the Phoenix of Wall Street now. Phoenix implies destruction preceding renewal, Eric noted as he scanned the documents. I prefer to think we simply revealed our true strength. The press certainly loves that angle. Speaking of leadership, how's the new ethics compliance program? He asked. Exceeding expectations, Penny replied. Every employee from board level down has completed the training. We're now an industry model for corporate governance. Eric allowed himself a small smile. From the ashes of betrayal, he had built something stronger, more resilient. The company's market value soared as investors recognized a leadership that valued integrity over family ties. His intercom buzzed. Mr. Mercer, Ms. Lopes is here for your meeting. Please send her in. Marina Lopes entered, carrying her leather portfolio. As the children's trauma counselor, she had been instrumental in helping them process the truth about their biological father and the choices that led to his imprisonment. The children are doing remarkably well, Marina reported as she took a seat. They're showing incredible resilience. James has started discussing college applications. He's even considering business school, following in your footsteps. Sarah and Elena, too, are making progress in their therapy. Elena told me yesterday that she's glad you're her real dad, Marina added warmly. Something tightened in Eric's chest. Through all the corporate battles and legal proceedings, his children's welfare had remained his primary concern. They're asking questions about Stephen and Kara, Marina continued. Normal, healthy questions. They're processing the betrayal without letting it define them. Like father, like children, Penny commented. They get their strength from their grandmother, too. Martha has been incredible through it all, Eric acknowledged. Speaking of dinner, Marina, shall we? I hear the new Italian place on Madison has excellent reviews. Eric gathered his jacket as Marina, now a natural part of their lives, walked with him. Her professional involvement had evolved into something more personal, though both maintained appropriate boundaries while she counseled his children. Penny, you'll handle the European press announcements, Eric instructed. They're scheduled for tomorrow morning and coordinated across time zones. Now go enjoy your dinner. You've earned it. As Eric and Marina walked to the elevator, employees nodded respectfully. His handling of the crisis had transformed him from a feared CEO to a revered leader, a man who had faced betrayal with dignity and emerged stronger. You seem different lately, Marina observed in the elevator. More at peace. Peace implies acceptance, Eric replied. I prefer to think of it as clarity, seeing things and people as they truly are. Including yourself, Marina asked softly. I always knew who I was, Eric said finally. Learning who others truly are is a kind of revelation. Sometimes betrayal strips away illusions we never knew we had. And now we build something real, something based on truth rather than lies. He held the door open for her, a natural, unforced gesture. The children deserve that. We all do. 5 years later, changes came that even Eric's calculating mind could not have predicted. In the backyard of his new home, a home free from the ghosts of betrayal, children's laughter filled every room. James, now in his second year at Wharton, tossed a football with Sarah, while Elena showed the younger siblings, Robert and Claire, how to hold a lacrosse stick properly. The sight of them together, a blended family born of crisis, brought him satisfaction deeper than any corporate victory. Still thinking about them? Marina asked, joining him on the patio. Just grateful for where our betrayal led me to, Eric replied honestly. My children, our family, are built on truth. That's what matters. Inside the house, Martha's voice coordinated dinner preparations. She had blossomed as a grandmother, her love for the twins matching her devotion to James, Sarah, and Elena. The wall of family photos now told a story of truth, resilience, and redemption. Dad, Elena, come show the twins that lacrosse move again. Someone called. Eric joined his children, his steps lighter than they had been in years. The twins, Robert and Claire, raced to him with the unrestrained joy of 4-year-olds who had never known betrayal. The boarding school called again, Marina mentioned casually. They want you to give the commencement address, something about integrity and leadership being the perfect theme. Eric helped his twins practice the proper lacrosse grip, noting how James automatically stepped in to help. I might do it, he mused. This story has value, not just the betrayal, but what came after. Truth, no matter how painful, always lays a better foundation than comfortable lies. Martha appeared in the doorway with dinner ready. James, help your sisters set the table, she instructed. As the family gathered around the new dining table, a table that had never seen Kara's false smiles or Stephen's hidden agendas, Eric surveyed his world. Martha sat at one end, Marina at his side, with the children arranged around them in a picture of hard-won domestic harmony. Stephen and Kara served their sentences in separate facilities. Their perfect plan had destroyed everything they hoped to build. Their appeals failed. Their claims of family loyalty fell flat against the mountain of evidence Eric had accumulated. Dad, James said, I've been thinking about a summer internship at Mercer Tech. I want to start in compliance and ethics, to learn the business from the ground up. Eric nodded approvingly. His eldest had learned the most valuable lesson. Integrity isn't just a corporate buzzword. It's the foundation of everything worth building. The European expansion is exceeding projections, he told his son. It's the perfect time to learn how ethical leadership translates into global success. Speaking of success, Martha added, Sarah's art is being featured in the school showcase. Alina made the honor roll again, and the twins. Well, they're just perfect. Perfection now meant something real, built on truth, and forged in the fire of betrayal overcome. The twins entertained everyone with preschool tales, their innocent chatter filling a space once occupied by secrets. Alina helped them with their napkins, her natural caregiving hinting at a future in medicine. This was his true victory, not the corporate success or legal triumph, but a family rebuilt on truth, where children understood that integrity was worth fighting for. Eric had turned betrayal into triumph, not by forgetting, but by building something stronger from the ruins. The past remained a reminder, not a burden, while the future stretched ahead bright with possibility. Martha raised her glass to family. The family we choose, the family we build, the family we earn, she declared. Eric squeezed Marina's hand under the table, grateful for every step that had led them here. Epilogue, 25 years later. The Mercer Tech global headquarters dominated the Manhattan skyline, a testament to power and precision, much like the man who built the empire it represented. In the main boardroom, James Mercer stood before the gathered media. Today marks the 25th anniversary of my father's passing. He began in a tone as authoritative as his father's had been. And yet, his influence shapes every decision we make at Mercer Tech. At 48, James bore a striking resemblance to his father, with the same steely gaze and unyielding determination. As CEO for the past decade, he had expanded the company far beyond what even his father had envisioned, yet always upheld the principles Eric instilled. My father built this company twice, James continued. First as a startup, and then again after betrayal threatened to destroy everything. He taught us that true strength lies not in avoiding falls, but in how you rise after them. In the front row sat Sarah Mercerchin, now a renowned corporate attorney and Mercer Tech's chief legal officer, beside their younger sister Alina, one of the country's leading psychiatrists specializing in trauma and betrayal recovery. The twins, Robert and Claire, now 29, managed Mercer Tech's European and Asian divisions respectively. The Mercer Institute of Corporate Ethics, James announced, will be established with an initial endowment of $5 billion to foster leadership built on integrity and to study the intersection of family business and corporate governance. Marina Mercer, elegant at 75, watched her stepson with pride. After Eric's death from a heart attack 10 years ago, she had continued his legacy of family unity by maintaining weekly dinners that brought all the children together. Her marriage to Eric had lasted 20 years, each year reinforcing the lesson that love built on truth is stronger than any built on lies. The Institute's first case study will be the complete story of the Mercer betrayal, James revealed. For the first time, all documents, recordings, and evidence will be made public, not to sensationalize, but to educate. The media erupted with questions. The Mercer betrayal had become legendary in corporate circles, studied in business schools, yet never with full access to the primary sources. Dr. Elena Mercer will head the Psychological Research Division. James continued once the room quieted. Her work with children affected by family betrayal has revolutionized the field. The Legal Ethics Department will be led by Sarah Mercerchin, whose groundbreaking work in corporate governance set new standards for family-owned businesses. She had learned much from watching Guadalupe Cain dismantle Stephen and Kara's schemes. And yes, James added before anyone could ask, the Institute will include a detailed analysis of the fate of those involved in the original betrayal. The room fell silent, awaiting details of Stephen Mercer and Kara Blanchard Mercer's outcomes. Stephen Mercer died in federal prison 15 years ago, James stated matter-of-factly. He never expressed remorse, never acknowledged his crimes, and died alone. Kara Blanchard Mercer served 18 years, was released 5 years ago, and now lives in obscurity in Arizona. Neither ever attempted to contact us again. In the years following their imprisonment, Stephen had repeatedly tried to manipulate the situation with letters claiming repentance, but Eric had blocked every attempt with unwavering resolve. The Institute will also house the Martha Mercer Memorial Library, James added, honoring our grandmother who passed away 2 years ago at 92. Her strength held this family together during its darkest hours. He continued, the Franklin Parsons Investigative Journalism Fellowship will support reporters focusing on corporate fraud and family business ethics. Franklin had passed away 5 years ago, but his meticulous methods are still taught to aspiring investigators. Guadalupe Cain, though retired, will serve as his special advisor. James nodded toward the veteran legal chief, now in her 80s, who had mentored Sarah through law school and remained a trusted family friend. Penny Mac's governance protocols, James concluded, which helped rebuild Mercer Tech's reputation, will form the foundation of our ethics curriculum. Penny had retired as CFO 5 years ago, but continued to serve on multiple boards, her reputation for ethical leadership undiminished. Perhaps the most important legacy, James said softly, is the one my father left his children. He taught us that character isn't inherited, it's built, choice by choice, day by day. He showed us that true strength isn't in never being betrayed, but in how you respond to betrayal. The twins, Robert and Claire, exchanged knowing glances. Though born after the betrayal, they had grown up understanding its importance. Eric had ensured all his children knew the story, not as a burden, but as a lesson in resilience. Our father was known as ruthless, James acknowledged, and he was, when circumstances required it. But his ruthlessness served a purpose, protecting what truly mattered: family, integrity, and truth. He taught us that mercy without justice is weakness, and justice without principle is mere revenge. In the years since Eric's death, each child had embodied a part of his legacy. James had his strategic brilliance, Sarah her unwavering principles, and the twins their global vision. The Mercer name now stood for something more than corporate success. It stands for the triumph of truth over lies, of integrity over expedience, and of justice over manipulation. James concluded, the Institute will ensure these lessons outlive us all. After the presentation, the family gathered in Eric's old office, now a preserved memorial to his leadership. Marina touched the desk where he had spent countless late nights planning and strategizing. He would be proud, she said softly, not just of our success, but of who you all have become. Elena, with professional insight blending with personal experience, added, that's why he fought so hard, not just for justice, but for our future. Sarah examined the wall of family photos, so different from those that once haunted Eric's study. These images captured genuine moments: graduations, weddings, births, and celebrations untainted by hidden lies. I saw Kara last year, Sarah revealed quietly. At a legal conference in Phoenix, she saw me too, but she turned and walked away, empty inside. Stephen's son even contacted me, Elena added, asking about our family history. I sent him the public records but maintained my father's boundary. No personal contact. Dad's rules about them never change, James noted firmly. No contact, no exceptions. The boundaries he set protected us then, and they protect us now. Claire, who had inherited Eric's tactical mind, nodded. The betrayal shaped us, but it doesn't define us. That was his greatest victory. Marina recalled. He once said his greatest achievement wasn't the company's success or even exposing the betrayal. It was raising children who understood the value of truth. Robert smiled. The Institute ensures that lesson reaches beyond our family. Dad's legacy becomes a roadmap for others facing similar challenges. James raised his glass, using the same scotch his father had favored. To Dad, he toasted. To the truth, to family not defined by blood, but by choice, truth, and principles worth fighting for. Marina added softly, to Eric. As the family toasted, the Manhattan skyline stretched before them. Mercer Tech's influence reached across continents, but Eric's true legacy lived in the values his children embodied. Stephen and Kara had tried to steal a family, but instead they forged one stronger than blood. Their betrayal was meant to destroy Eric Mercer's world. Instead, it created his legacy. His children learned that true strength comes not from avoiding betrayal, but from facing it with unwavering principle and resolve. In boardrooms, classrooms, and homes around the world, the Mercer story would continue to teach its timeless lesson. Integrity once lost cannot be reclaimed, but a life built on truth can withstand any betrayal. The Mercer Institute will stand as a monument not only to corporate ethics, but to a father who transformed personal betrayal into public triumph, shaping his pain into purpose and teaching his children that some principles are worth any price. Eric Mercer's legend lived on, not just in the empire he built, but in the values he instilled, a legacy of truth, justice, and unwavering strength in the face of betrayal. Thanks to everyone who took the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed it, please consider liking and subscribing if you haven't already. Feel free to share your thoughts on the events in the comments below. Take care.